With the X2, AGM launched an outdoor phone which in terms of specs leaves behind pretty much everything else in this device category. A Snapdragon processor and a real dual camera are just two of the highlights this phone packs, and that are a rarity in the rugged phone segment. We purchased a unit of the AGM X2 for review and checked it out in detail. I'm Christopher for China Mobile Mac, enjoy watching in this review. The review unit was purchased on GearBest, where we picked the 64GB model. Down below in the video description you will find links to all the variants as well as the cheaper X2 SE model. The AGM X2 isn't cheap, and thus it isn't wrong to expect a top-notch build quality and a premium design. While design-wise options are limited on rugged phones, they all look more or less the same. Still, it's visible that AGM tried to create a premium rugged device, and they succeeded. The X2 for an outdoor phone actually does look almost elegant. They added a nice touch to the design by making the metal core of the body visible around the screen and giving it a polished silver bevel that adds a nice contrast to the remaining black body. On the sides they applied decoration metal stripes in a nice brushed metal look along some screws that underline the phone's sturdiness. The edges of the phone are protected by thick rubber parts which are supposed to protect the phone when you drop it. In terms of build quality, the X2 is absolutely top-notch. There are no large gaps or rattling parts, it's just a really solid, well-made device, and it's pretty sturdy. You can easily sit or stand on it without causing damage, and bending it with only the hands is almost impossible too. There's just one thing we don't get. Why the hell did they go for a Gorilla Glass 5 rear? Yes, the glass is sturdy and looks beautiful, but still it can be a bitch and break on you. But at least, even if it does break, the phone will still be waterproof according to community reports. Talking waterproofing, the AGM X2, according to its manufacturers, protected against dust and water up to a depth of 1.5 meters. Of course, we did put the phone through quite some tests and indeed had no issues with the waterproofing. Our unit took multiple dives, the longest one was an hour at a depth of 50 centimeters. The phone kept working without any issues. There was just a bit of water inside the protection caps of the ports, but that didn't cause any issues since the ports are waterproof as well. Still, you should keep the caps closed to prevent dirt from getting in or pins from corroding. By the way, if you feel the need to replace the caps, AGM ships replacement caps and screws with the X2. Screen-wise, the X2 comes with a 16:9 display with a size of 5.5 inches, and the nice thing is that it's an AMOLED screen with Full HD resolution, offering a sharp and vivid picture with a great contrast that looks just great, especially at night. In addition, AMOLED screens can be more energy efficient. One downside, however, is that the screen suffers from those typical AMOLED candy colors, and you can't change that since there is no way to change color profile in the settings. The front is made from sturdy Gorilla Glass 5 as well and packs a 10-point touchscreen which works very well, precise and with near to no input lag. With a Snapdragon 653, the AGM X2 is powered by a Qualcomm processor, which is a bit older but still quite powerful. In the Antutu benchmark, the phone reaches almost 105,000 points, which right now means mid-range. The performance is absolutely sufficient for daily use, and we never felt like the phone would be too slow. The system and all apps run smooth and snappy all of the time, and that also applies to more demanding stuff like Facebook. Switching between opened apps works like a breeze as well, and the same applies to using two apps side by side in split screen mode. Also, if you open tons of apps and switch between them, the X2 doesn't show stutter or loading times since it packs 6GB of RAM. It's LPDDR3 RAM only, but still fast enough to not notice any downsides there. The RAM management is non-restrictive and allows keeping tons of apps in the background. All in all, anyone not looking after high-end performance should be more than satisfied with the performance of the X2. Those of you into playing games will be happy to hear that the AGM X2 handles those as well. It really pays off that Qualcomm always focuses on potent graphics in their chipsets, which means that even the older chips still perform well with modern games. This applies to the Snapdragon 653 as well, which easily handles stuff like Unkilled or Broken Kingdom or Asphalt Extreme on highest graphics settings with very decent frame rates. Pretty much the only big downside of the Snapdragon 653 is that it's made with 28nm. This essentially means that energy efficiency can't keep up with modern chips and it gets hotter. Due to the thick body, you don't notice the heat, but you see that the chip starts to throttle in a synthetic throttle test. But still, we never really noticed that during day-to-day use, so in the end this is not much of a big deal. For storage, you can choose between 64GB and 128GB, and the AGM X2 SE model is available with 64GB only. In the benchmark, the memory came out to be speedy enough. If you don't need dual SIM, you can also expand the storage by microSD cards. We did test this with a 128GB card and it worked very well and fast. The sensor equipment of the X2 is quite impressive, since in addition to the standards like a gyroscope or compass, which by the way both work absolutely fine, there is a large amount of unusual sensors like ambient temperature, relative humidity, air pressure, altitude, a ton of movement trackers and even a VOC sensor to measure air quality. The sad thing, however, is that AGM doesn't use most of them. There is just one app for the VOC sensor, but this one is very rudimentary and thus pretty much useless. So if you wanna make proper use of all these sensors, you need to find apps supporting them. If you are like, I don't need all that shit, well, lucky you, the AGM X2 SE comes without those special sensors and is much cheaper at between 350 to 370 euros. The fingerprint scanner on the rear is surprisingly good. With an unlocking time of around 0.7 seconds, it isn't the fastest, but it is very reliable. During daily use it almost never failed and even works with wet fingers. The AGM X2 packs a notification light which is placed above the screen and can light up in red, green and blue. It indicates the notifications, calls and displays the charging state. On the bottom side, the phone packs a Type-C port with standard size, so all cables will fit, which isn't something we see that often on rugged phones. The port uses the USB 2.0 standard. Now in case you worry about the 3.5mm jack, don't. The X2 packs a classic headphone jack on the upper side and it sounds decent with no interference. The operating system running on the X2 is Android Nougat in version 7.1.2 and at the time of testing it came with the security patch from January 2018. AGM uses a clean stock Android without any optical changes and it packs a ton of different languages and comes with the Play Store pre-installed. The phone is Google certified and there is no annoying bloatware or adware, and during the time of testing the phone never crashed on us and there also have been no compatibility issues. An OTA updater is present and is used. During the testing period we got one OTA update. Regarding the reception quality, the AGM X2 has some issues with mobile data in areas with weak coverage. Either the connection isn't stable or it can't connect at all. In well-covered areas, however, everything is fine though. A big plus is the wide range of supported frequencies, so the phone can be used pretty much everywhere in the world. In Wi-Fi the phone supports the AC standard and thus reaches high data rates. The reception quality is great and even one floor below the router the connection remains fast. Bluetooth is supported with version 4.0 and covers around 3 rooms without hiccups. And the X2 and the X2 SE also pack support for NFC. The antenna for it is placed on the rear and worked fine when we tested it with an NFC tag. The GPS works flawlessly as well. Despite several GPS testing apps only displaying mediocre results, the GPS is very accurate in real-life use. We never faced any issues during GPS tracking and navigation works very well too. In the audio quality department, the media speaker is kinda disappointing. It's placed on the rear of the phone and thus gets covered when the phone sits on a table. The audio quality is kinda flat. What's surprising is that AGM include in-ear headphones with a decent quality. They are made from metal and sound quite decent with a proper bass playback. They even include earplugs with different sizes. During telephony, the X2 sounds pretty good and offers HD voice as well as voice over LTE. The earpiece sounds good and the microphones deliver a proper audio quality as well. When it comes to outdoor phones, one thing that pretty much always sucks is the camera. The AGM X2 aims at changing this since it packs a real dual camera consisting of two Sony IMX386 sensors with f2.0 aperture and a front camera with a whopping 16 megapixels f2.0 aperture and the Samsung S5K 3P3 sensor. And indeed, the AGM X2 did surprise us with its camera. Yes, there are better cameras for sure in the price ranges of the X2 and X2 SE, but when only comparing it within the outdoor segment, the AGM X2 camera-wise is a great pick. In terms of colors, the pictures look very good, the dynamic range isn't bad, the shutter time is short, moving objects are captured sharp, and the amount of detail is fairly high too. At daylight, the camera definitely is more than just an emergency snapshot shooter. One weakness, however, is HDR. Pictures taken in HDR mode often show some noise or a fogginess. We would like to see AGM fixing this issue with one of the next updates. Something that did surprise us a lot is how well the dual camera / bouquet mode works. We hadn't any high expectations since AGM are a small and young brand, but in the end there was no reason for that. Just look at those pictures. As you can see, the X2 is capable of doing great bouquet shots, and even with rather complicated scenes or moving stuff, they look just great. Especially the quality of the bouquet effect is stunning. It doesn't just apply some blur effect, but creates a realistic bouquet effect, including gorgeous circles of confusion. All in all, we don't think that the AGM X2 has to hide behind a Mi A1, Nubia Z17 Mini or even a OnePlus 5. But how do things look at night? Well, surprisingly good actually. When activating night mode, the AGM X2 does usable night shots given there are enough synthetic light sources. Results are not perfect, but we have definitely seen a lot worse performing phones in the past. Something that needs to be improved though is shooting with the LED flash. At night, the X2 is very sensitive to shakiness when using the flash, and it's almost impossible to get sharp pictures then. The 16 megapixel front camera might sound attractive to selfie fans, and yep, it can take very decent selfies, but it needs a lot of light for that. In a nutshell, the darker it gets, the more noise and blurriness you will see. Recording videos with the main camera is possible with up to UHD resolution at 30 FPS, and the quality is pretty good. The PDAF focus works fast and reliable, and the audio quality is very decent as well. Unfortunately, when panning, UHD footage shows a slight stutter and there is no image stabilization. The front camera can record videos with a maximum resolution of Full HD. Here the quality is pretty good as well, which applies to both picture and audio. And now there is just one thing left to talk about, and that's battery. The X2 packs a 6000 mAh cell, and considering the 28nm chipset, it offers a decent battery life. With very intense usage, it's easy to get through the day. With normal usage, 2 days are possible as well. Charging is done via Quick Charge 3.0, but still it does take a while. Charging from 20 to 100% takes almost 3 hours. Charging from 20% to 70% is pretty fast though, with just an hour, so a quick recharge to finish a day is always possible. So what is the final conclusion about the AGM X2? Well, leaving the glass back aside, the X2 is almost a perfect outdoor phone. It's a premium device with impressive specs that at the moment is a very unique device. Finding a similar spec phone will be very hard for sure. But still, it's so expensive. The AGM X2 with 128GB storage is priced at a whopping 500 euros, which is insane. And even the AGM X2 SE still is rather pricey at 350 to 370 euros. Sure, anyone who needs an outdoor phone and really wants the best specs there will likely be willing to spend that amount of money. But we would have loved to see AGM being a bit more generous and at least offering a newer chipset. A Snapdragon 821 or a Snapdragon 660 for sure would have been possible with the same price tag. And with that being said, we reached the end of this review. A shop link and more information is located down in the video description. I was Christopher for CMM, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.